Shalom, brethren. Today I want to do a quick video. Still haven't gotten my voice back, and the wife has lost hers completely. So today's video is just going to be about, very quickly, about ditching the traditions of men again. And it comes because it kind of ties into Shabbat. We know for a fact what Yahuah says is not something we can deviate from. Christian traditions have us thinking of things like born-again doctrine. There's no word in all the scriptures that says born again. It says born from above. And we can get into a longer teaching about that, even in 2 Kepha, or 2 Peter, the pagan name we've given him. It talks about the word they use there isn't even the same Greek word. It doesn't mean born again. It means to conform the will of your mind to that of the will of Elohim, which fits right in with what Scripture says. We have many witnesses to that. But we don't have any witnesses to born again. We do have being born from above. And it's not talking about the moment that you went and professed your love for God or the Lord or any of this stuff, and that wasn't when you were born again. You're not born again until this isn't after you receive your new body. It's talking about no flesh can enter the reign of Elohim. So it's quite literally talking about something very spiritual. And because of Christianity, this doctrine has prevailed even into the Nazarene or the branches or the offshoots or whatever you want to call yourselves, walkers in the way, following Yahushua Mashiach. I would encourage you to dump all of the traditions of men. Get all of the old leaven out. Get the hypocrisy out. Get the old traditions out. Get any and all of that out. Some of these things are infecting the body and they continue to carry over, and we need to look at these things a little more seriously and say, what have I carried over? Some of it is our understanding of Scripture. If you read something in Scripture, anything that's right of Matithyahu, hi Pucci, anything that's right of Matithyahu, and you need to understand that's only a witness and a testimony. That is not anything new scripturally. It all ties back to, hello, Other Pucci, good girls. It all ties back to what the Mashiach was saying right from the get-go. And he was teaching from the Torah, the Tanakh, the writings, the songs, the Kettim, the Nettim, and the Torah. He was teaching from those very books and all of the writings, all of them. Yes, even the writings that you're not familiar with. And that's the same thing that the rest of them were teaching. They were not teaching from a new book or a new teaching. These weren't new teachings. These were people writing letters to people that they had taught in the way of the Tanakh, in the way of following Yah, the way he says to. And they weren't telling you to do anything new. So if what you're reading seems to be new from what the Christians renamed the Old Testament, or Tertullian actually, it's not an Old Testament. There's nothing old about it. It is the path. These are the ancient righteous paths. And we have to understand it. We have to do what Yah says. We have to follow what Yah says. So you need to dump all of that Christianese, Buddhism, whatever else you might have brought into this, because there's a lot of people still out there thinking that being a nice guy or a decent person is following and just loving, the people around you, the world, and people in the world, and just trying to just be a loving person. Well, that's great, but not if you're not keeping the will of Elohim. There's no room for error here. They didn't make a golden calf and call it Thoth or anything else. They didn't call it Isis. They didn't call it Horus or Zeus or anything else. Tammuz, they called it Yahuah. They said, this be Yahuah. And they tried to serve it. So he said, don't do that. He almost destroyed them all. If it hadn't been for Moshe. So we have to remember, Yah says, do it one way or this way, not put your own spin on it, your own twist on it, anything like that. Stop trying to put twists on Yah's word. You don't have any twist to put on it. That's not what you're called to do. The call is, if you shall obey all that I have said to do, then I shall be your Elohim, and you shall be my people. Not if you shall obey and kind of, put your own flair on it. There is no flare. You get no flare. And point in fact, let's look at Moshe and Aharon. I made this point before, but let's look at it again. He said, go say to the rock to bring forth water for all those who were complaining about being thirsty. And what did he do? He went and struck the rock with the staff. And because he still brought forth water, because Yah's going to keep his word. But because of that, they couldn't enter the promised land, because he said, you stole from me my esteem. You took it upon yourself to do something your way when I told you the way to do it. And you decided to do it another way. Still, you went to the rock, you commanded it to bring forth water, but you struck it. So from that, it looked as though maybe Moshe or the staff itself had power and not Yahuah. So we see that he's that way with everything. He says to keep his Shabbat. He says in Wayikra 23:3, that it was renamed Leviticus, he says there that 6 days you have to complete all your work. That is all your stuff for you, your family, your friends, your neighbors, your relatives, all of those that are not in the body. You have 6 days to put all of your affairs in order for them. But the seventh day is a Kodesh Mikra. Kodesh Mikra. It is a set apart, if you will, completely set apart. Set apart from what? Set apart from anything else you do during the week. Set apart, gathering for the reading of the word. That's what Mikra means. It means to gather with the body for the reading of the word. And we can go into Abrit, or what they renamed Hebrews 10, 24, 25, 26, where it talks about do not forsake the gathering of yourselves together, like is the habit of some. It already become a habit. But it is to build up the body in love. How do you build up the body? With the word. You're hearing the word, listening to the word, talking about the word, reading the word, discussing the word of Yah is the way you build up your belief in your faith. It also builds you up spiritually, because the Shabbat is a day that was given to us. It is a gift. If you look at that word that they say, blodsing, we don't use that word, but if you look at that word, it's an innocuous word that covers up the truth. That word is really conveying to us that Yah gave us something that he did not have to. It was a day to recharge ourselves. It was a day of, it actually means, Shabbat means to cease and desist. Now, the next little one says rest, but it's not a sleep or a nap. It's not a contemplation on the word and listening to teachings at home alone. If you have other brothers or sisters that you can gather with, that's what you're commanded to do. And if you don't, then get online and find some and gather with them. This is what we're commanded to do. It's not a day to go run errands, to go run your family members around. It's not a day to take your children or your uncle or your niece or your nephews or your mom or your dad or your brother or your sister, or anybody, or a friend or a neighbor. It's not a day to go to a sporting event with them or to watch them play sports or to take them to sports. It is not that day. That is a day to where you are to not use, it says in 58:13 of Yeshayahu, Isaiah, renamed the pagan name, is clearly says, do not turn your foot back from the Shabbat. Do not do your own will. Do not use your own words or your own thoughts. But it is the thoughts and the will of Yahuah. How do we know those things? By reading the word, because he spells it out in there. This is a day you are to gather together. It is not a day to go run around doing anything else. It is not a day to go do other, what you would consider righteous things for Yah. This is a day, he says, that you dedicate to me. So you dedicate it to him. That day is dedicated to him. And in that is your rest. You are resting in him. You are recharging, a spiritual recharging, because the world drains you. All the things that you are doing in the world every day, 6 days a week, these things are draining you completely. They're completely pulling the Ruach HaKodesh away from you, because these things are not of Yah. And you can believe that it becomes quieter because you become more pronounced as that week goes by, because you start thinking of you more. You think of your family. You think of making a living and bringing, and all these things are fine. Yah gives us 6 days to do these things. That day, not a day to do any of those things. That is not a day that we were given to go rest on the couch, walk our dogs, take a hike, and just enjoy the creation of Yah. He says, gather together for the reading of the word. And by hearing the reading of the word and by reading it and studying it on that day with the brethren, you build up the body. This is what it's all about. That is how you love Yahuah. He says, this is what you do. It is a Shabbat to Yahuah. It is not a Shabbat to you, your family, your friends, your neighbors, your brothers. It's not a time to go do what is right in your own eyes, even if it seems like the righteous or right thing to do. It's not. Yahuah says your righteousness is but filthy rags before me. Bear that out, what that means. That term, filthy rags, is quite vulgar. In other words, the most vulgar thing you can think of, that's what it means. So go look that up. Go research that out and realize that those righteous, wonderful, kind, loving, giving things that you're doing that Christianity taught you, and maybe some other faiths out there teach things like this too, these charitable actions that we supposedly are supposed to do. I'm like, those things are fun, but you have 6 days to do them. You have the evening time as soon as Shabbat is over. By the way, evening, spelled out in scripture as well. There's no argument about that. I know people still are. And again, don't take my word for this. I implore you to go out and study to show yourself approved. Go look up these words in their original Hebrew. If you can't find the Hebrew for what we call the Brit, then find it in the Aramaic. And then you can back translate to Hebrew from Aramaic, and you get a fuller, deeper understanding of what they were saying and what they were talking about. So many mistranslations, misinterpretations, misuse of words continuously. And because of this, we have no idea what righteousness is. Righteousness to Yah is obedience. Love to Yah, pardon me, is obedience. It's that simple. Do all that he has said. Do not differ. Do not vary, not even in the slightest. Do exactly what he says to do as he has said to do it. Another thing, pardon me. Another thing he's proclaiming here is what your calling is. No one has a different calling in the body. No one. Now, I'm not telling you don't have a different function. I'm saying a calling. You're not called to do something different than the body. Your calling is to serve and obey Yah with love and commitment, to do all he has said to do, and to love your brethren, your neighbor, as you love yourself. That is what you're called to do. It is to worship and love him, and to esteem and honor his name in all that you do and say to all the people that you encounter. Find a person of peace, go in and dine with them. Find somebody who's not, dust off your feet and move on. Now, if you feel that you're being called to do something more, a teaching, possibly going out and what they call proselytizing, or creating a discipleship and telling people about the word, again, you got 6 days to do that. 7th day is not a day to be doing that. 7th day is a day that he has made for you to recharge yourself in him spiritually and dedicate unto him and his word, his thoughts, his ways. Only. That's it. There's nothing else. Okay? If you're feeling like you are being called to do something different or more, and it leads you away from the body of believers, And it leads you into a more solitary thing where you're going to go do kind of your own thing, but you're going to dedicate it to Yah. Then you're not being obedient to his word. You are called to build the body. This is all about calling us back together as Yisrael, or modern day vernacular Israel. We are called to bring back the body, one body, many parts. The hand cannot say, I have no need of the feet. And the eyes cannot say, I have no need of the ears. Every part makes up the entire body, and without one part, the body is left incomplete. It's maimed. The scripture tells us it's better to enter into the reign of Elohim maimed, but that's if you have a part that just wants to do it its own way. It has nothing but wickedness and evil intent. And that's disobedience to the word of Yah. That's disobedience to what he has told us to do. That's exactly what that means. It is not talking about your lustful eyes and your lustful ears and your lustful hands. It is really talking about the body. Every part is just as important. If you have a calling for music, or you want to go out and you want to disciple others, or you want to put together a video set up in a program to where you're talking to people and just trying to extol them, to love one another, to come together, to stop this divisive nonsense and start coming together in love, then that is in the context of within the body. You are not called to do something on your own separately. And if you are, it's not Yahuah calling you. Okay? Self-sovereignty, that spirit of self-sovereignty, and Hashatan's behind it all. He will see, just like he did with Yahuah. Yahuah in the garden, when he said, look at this fruit. Is it not lovely and wonderful and delectable to eat? And she said, it is. It is pleasing. She was very happy. She'd already been looking at it. So he didn't have to tempt her too much by convincing her. He didn't have to do a sales pitch on her about how wonderful this fruit looked and how tasty it would be and all these things. He just pointed it out because he knew that she already looked upon it and had wondered about it, lusted on, desired it. And so all he had to do was nudge her in the direction she was already inclined to go. Didn't take much. Didn't take much. Creator of all things said, don't eat it, you'll die. Somebody comes up and says, yeah, it looks pretty good, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. Surely won't die. Casting doubt. Because they were supposed to create the entire body of worshipers and lovers of Yah. You have to love his word. You have to be obedient. And obedience means to build up the body. You're not called to be on your own, to do your own thing. If you think you are, you're wrong. The body is the most important thing. Build up your brethren. Love your brethren. Stop with this nonsense that comes from other faith systems out there. It comes from these faith systems out there that teach you. Everybody has their own calling and everyone has their own way of doing things, and it's okay. There's not many ways to serve Yah. There's only his way. That's it. He calls you to gather. He calls you to be a body. He calls you through his son to build up the body, to love the body, to become many parts, one body, of which Yahuah, the Hamashiach is the head. This is all built on that cornerstone. You do not have a calling outside of the body. You might have a calling within the body. If you're musically inclined, build a music ministry, if you will. Use it to help build the body. If you have a wonderful Tov word to bring forth that you've learned, some of the Hebrew, and it's opened up to you, bring it forth, share it with the body. Love your brethren enough to say, look what I see, and see if it bears out, and love them enough to follow it. Don't love them too little. You have to build up the body. This is about a community thing. Yes, it's very personal. It's very about you and about your heart to do all that Elohim, Yahuah, has said. Will you do it? Will you obey him? Will you not try to put your own spin, your own thing, do your own thing, and go out there and try to be your own person in Yah, thinking you're doing righteousness? Because if you're not doing what he says, bear this out in the word. Don't believe me. Please study to show yourself approved. Get yourself a Hebrew concordance. Get yourself all of the books you can, and go back and research these words out. And don't just take it for granted that somebody who's translated it for you didn't use an open source to translate it and back translate it, just much like the Strong's Concordance did, back translated it from the King Iemes or the Westminster Confession version of things, and just back translated it. So a lot of it's very poor translation. You've got to go bear these words out, because when you do, wow, you can't believe how wonderful it is and how magnificent his word is. And then all the contradictions just go away, because now you truly know the full depth and intent of his word. And pray continuously, Yah, open up your word to me. Give me eyes to see and ears to hear. And whatever you show me, even if it contradicts everything I thought I knew, I'll do. Be honest. If you're going to make an oath with him, an agreement with him, be ready, because he'll give it to you. And he'll expect you to obey him to the letter, exactly as he has said it. You can't change things up. You can't go off rogue and do your own thing and just do it in the name of Yahuah and think he won't keep you out of the promised land or even destroy you entirely. Thank you. We love you.